if they look at the Constitution of Ireland, the Constitution of Ireland says that the government protects the people. And how is the government going to protect the people if it's going to deny me a livelihood? So they're going to stop me working, and they're going to say you can't have any benefits either. So what do they want me to live on?
But you know as well as I do, the government are not going to allow you to become a martyr. They will manipulate the situation and say, well, hold on, Tony was in business himself. He did have a job. He could have made money. He was out there to make a point of principle for everybody else and unfortunately died doing so. And again, I say to you, Tony, the only thing that will be achieved at the end of it, and I say this with the greatest respect because I have a huge amount of sympathy for what you're doing and I support you in what you're doing, but the only thing that will happen or could happen at the end of it is your wife is without a husband. And how is that going to make things better? That's not going to make things any better. Surely there's other ways around working this out. Or protesting.
Well, the only way I can work around this, but it's the same as the insolvency. It's the same process. All the RTE celebrities are on as well. It's basically I set up a company in someone else's name, and I can work under it. Mm-hmm. That's the way they're doing the insolvency. That's the way Pat Kenny and all the boys, Hook, the whole lot of them are getting paid. They're all getting paid their money straight into companies, and they're taking the wage out under the companies. So they've been abusing the system for years.
They're not. Well, hold on a second. They're not abusing it. They're using the system. They're using the system. And Tony, you were self-employed too, and you had a company, yeah?
Yeah, but the simple thing is, I'm a trading company. I actually buy stock and sell stock. They don't buy or sell anything. You know what I mean? Companies are there for people like me that are actually trading, not people who are waffling away on a radio station. You know what I mean?
Hold on, Tony. That's a very unfair statement to make because they're providing a service. For example, when you take Pat Kenny, for example, I don't know all of his business, but I'm sure he does other things as well as being a talk show host on Radio 1. He probably does opening supermarkets every now and again or public appearance or public speaking. So his company, the money comes into his company. A lot of presenters, radio presenters, set up companies. Because they do other stuff outside the radio station. They do voiceovers. They do ads on TV. He used to do the Late Late Show. They would be all charged separately. I mean, to say that he doesn't deserve or doesn't have the right to have a company, just like you did, just because he's not buying and selling goods, I think is unfair. He buys and sells a service.
Well, that's debatable, to be honest.
Okay, that's a different argument. But Tony, going back to you, because I am concerned about you, because I don't want to see anybody lose their life. I mean, what does the government need to do to get you to start eating again?
Well, the government needs to look at the Constitution and then look at the property tax, and it goes completely against it. You cannot just tell a person they cannot provide for their families. They're telling me you cannot work again if you do not pay this tax at a time when a person cannot even pay their full mortgage repayments. How can you impose another tax? What's that going? That's going to put a person in worse debt. So for me, it's crazy.
So, by the way, I just want to get a feel for it. So if anybody wants to text us, you can at 53544. I want to know if people obviously support Tony and what he's doing. And I imagine the majority of people do. So you can text us at 53544. Maybe there's something you want to ask Tony, you can. You can call in on 1850 410 494. So are you looking for people to support you, Tony, obviously, at the forecourts?
I am indeed, yeah. There's a protest in there tomorrow now. It's not me, but it encompasses all. There's a protest in front of the Dáil tomorrow at 6 o'clock tomorrow evening. Mm-hmm. And I'd advise anyone that has any problems or issues with the government at the moment, what's going on, to be there.
Okay, and what has been said to you? Have you had any communication with any of the ministers so far?
I have, yeah. I've had a chat with three of them. They're going to do a press release tomorrow. Claire Daly, Boyd Barrett, and Joan Collins. They're doing a press release with me at 12 o'clock tomorrow. And they're going to support me in my cause.
Well, I know they do tend to support people like yourselves.
That's correct,
in fairness to Claire Daly. And Joan Collins as well. She's always been there. But in saying that, Tony, I don't want to see a bad result at the end of this, because I honestly can't see them changing anything because you've decided that you'll go on a hunger strike.
Yeah, but as far as I know, looking at the Constitution, when I read the Constitution, it says the government is there to protect the livelihood of the people. Mm-hmm. And how are they protecting my livelihood if they turn around to me and say, by the way, Tony, you cannot work anymore because you haven't paid this tax, and we're not going to let you get any benefits either. So,
if they turn around and say, okay, if they turn around to you, Tony, tomorrow and say, okay, well, I tell you what, we will give tax clearance certificates to people even if they haven't paid the household charge or property tax. Well, then you've got taxi drivers, you've got everybody else who haven't paid tax who are going to use that and say, well, hold on, you said we could get a tax clearance cert even if we haven't paid all our taxes up to date.
Yeah, but what they've also done as well, they've linked it to my company tax. If I don't even pay that, they won't even accept my VAT returns for next month. They won't accept my tax documents for October. Mm-hmm. And penalties are load up on them as well because of a household charge that they invented.
And just how are you feeling, by the way, at the moment, Tony? Because you haven't eaten in 16 days. You couldn't be feeling too good.
Well, I was a bit ropey there today because I was basically told that I could sleep outside the door. I couldn't use a tent, couldn't use a sleeping bag, couldn't use a camp bed. So I slept there last night. I had about 3 hours sleep. And at this stage, it's not great to be sleeping on the ground, as you can imagine.
After not eating for 16 days probably doesn't help either.
Exactly, yeah.
And so have you spoke to your own doctor in relation to this? Have you talked to a doctor?
Well, I spoke to my doctor 2 weeks before I went on hunger strike, and then I spoke to him 5 days in it. And I asked him, could he please give me some advice on it? Like, basically, some advice on nutrition. Maybe you might have to take a certain vitamin or whatever to protect a certain organ. And I'm still waiting for him to come back to me.
So how long do you honestly believe you can go without food? How many more days do you think you can go without food?
Well, probably not too long, because for the first week I was on hunger strike, I was actually still working. I kept working away. I had to finish the job, and I made a promise, so I kept doing the job. So I finished up losing about £4 a day for the first few days. I
mean, realistically, you're not going to go 30. You're not going to get any more than 30 or 40 days without food.
Well, it's been suggested to me by people that in the know that have been around the hunger strikes that I'll last about 35 max.
Mm-hmm. And are you ready for that?
Basically, I am. Yes.
Okay, wait there for a second, Tony. I just want to go to Paul. Paul, you're in Galway. You want to talk to Tony. You're live in Classic Hits 4FM. Good evening to you, Paul.
How are you doing, Tony?
Not too bad. And yourself, thanks.
Not too bad. Fair play to you for what you're doing now. I think it's long overdue that people started standing up against the government, but it's just a pity you have to do it on your own.
Yeah, well, you see, that's the problem I have. Like, the government are shameful. They won't do anything about it. But I think now it's a shame on the people that they're still not standing up to them after all these tapes. Everything is coming out now. Shit is hitting the fan, and still nobody's getting out and protesting. I was at a protest in Dublin on Saturday, and there was 30,000 gay rights activists walking, parading up the street, and we had 300 or 400 at a protest on a week that all them Anglo Tapes come out. People need to cop on to themselves and get out.
You think people's priorities are wrong, Tony, yeah?
Well, the way I look at it, they're not suffering enough yet. Some people are seeing it, or maybe they're hiding away, hiding the shame. It's not a shame to be on the floor. It's a shame if you hide it and let your kids starve. Because of it. You've got to get out and put your hands up and say, hold on, this is not right. Don't get a minute.
But I think we all know, look, Tony,
the country was covered in food because it didn't have the balls, basically, to stand up to the Brits or whatever. So we need to stand up to the government now because they're on the gravy train.
Yeah, but we do need, hold on, we do need to stand up, Tony, but we don't need to die doing it.
Well, I don't know if we need to die doing it. I'd love it if there was another way to do it, but I tried to organise a few different things and I might as well be banging my head off a wall. People in this country do not know how to protest because they'll hide behind the curtains. Look who's standing out there. Oh, it's more about what car you have in your driveway, what number plate you have, instead of the real issue. The real issue is what's in your fridge, not what car you drive.
I find in this country, Tony, no matter what the government fire at the people, they just accept us.
Exactly.
We're an easy-going bunch of people. Like, I thought, for them to bring this household tax into proper law, should there not have been a referendum?
Well, they didn't have to change the constitution. They only had to change laws. So they didn't have to change. They didn't have to change the constitution to do it.
But they just ignored the constitution. They went around it.
Well, I don't think they ignored the constitution. There was changes in law made. For example, last November they made changes in law whereby the revenue could take money from your bank account. That was laws. There were changes in laws. There was no constitutional changes for the property tax.
Exactly. Right. They went around it. The Constitution says that the government is there to uphold the rights of the people. How are they upholding my rights, telling me I can't work and I'm not entitled to benefits? So what choice? I either emigrate or lie down and die. That's it.
But what you're doing at the moment, Tony, before you went on the hunger strike, you weren't starving. No. You had paid your mortgage up to date. You chose, obviously, not to pay it now because, obviously, you're making a stand. The decision you've made to starve to death, basically, is your own decision. That's nothing to do with the government not protecting you.
Well, of course it is. The government is telling me that I can no longer work. So unless I get a gun and go out and rob a bank, How am I?
Yeah, but Tony, if you were paying your mortgage up to date, which you had, right, and your property tax was how much? How much was your property tax? Just out of curiosity, $4.95, was it?
In around that, yeah.
Okay. Are you telling me that you couldn't, not that you agreed with it, I'm not suggesting you agreed with the property tax, but that you couldn't get together €495?
I can guarantee you I can't. I don't drink. I'm an ex-alcoholic. Or an ex-drink. I've been drinking 2.5 years. Every penny, I don't go out anymore. So I don't spend money. Any penny I get goes to pay our bills.
And how much was your mortgage per month, by the way?
It was about $2,500.
$2,500 a month?
Yeah.
And what about, I know it may be a stupid suggestion, if it's just yourself and your wife, what about, stepping down to maybe an apartment instead of a house worth €430,000? We
have tried everything, but you see, the problem is we kept paying our mortgage. We paid the bank over $100,000 in mortgage in the last 4.5 years. We used every penny of my wife's savings to keep the mortgage paid. We followed the government line, which is pay everything, pay everything, pay everything. Now the bank, I'm told I'll be one of the top ones to repossess, because they can turn around. They're only going to lose $50,000 in my house.
Okay, hold on.
I paid them all.
Hang on for a second. Terry, you're in Limerick. You're live in Classic Hits 4FM. Good evening to you, Terry.
Niall, how are you doing?
How you doing? Go ahead.
How are you doing, Tony? All right?
Not too bad, thanks.
Yeah. You're wasting your time, Tony, honest to God, because these people don't care about nothing themselves, you know what I mean? You could do it, 1,000 people could die and they wouldn't give a damn, you know?
Well, that's what I said. Well, I said, as I said, the shame is on the government, but now the shame is on the people. The people don't stand up and start fighting soon. The people are going to be buried in this country. The PAYE worker, which I am not one of, will be buried because they will not get out under the insolvency,
you know?
Sorry, what did you say there, Terry?
There's a lot of money still in this country, and a lot of people are still well off. You know what I mean? That's why there's not rights on the street, you know?
Well, I don't know. I just think, Terry, I believe that Irish people don't have the ability to stand up.
No, I think it's money as well. You know,
see, I do believe this is a different type of recession. I know people are doing badly, and I know the biggest problem, obviously, is the banks and the amount of money that was loaned out between 2004 and 2008. Some of it, by the way, probably illegally, but however, I do believe that it's a different type of recession. If we go back 30 or 40 years ago where people literally didn't have enough money for food, I mean, the majority of people now, I find, that are whining about not having enough money can still manage to go to Spain on holidays.
Of course, yeah.
So I think it's a different type of recession.
On the news?
Sorry?
Why wasn't he on the news?
Tony, were you on RT News?
I wasn't on RT,
Have they ignored you completely?
Completely, 100%. They stand beside me every day. They were filling 2 people there yesterday from this abortion thing or whatever. They wouldn't come near me at all.
And what about newspapers? I did see your story on the Journal, all right.
There was something, there was a small little snippet on page 4 of the Sun this morning.
So here we have a man who's willing to die.
The person of hunger strike in Ireland, and it's not on the news.
It's not on the news.
So they're walking in by you, they won't even look at you. They see the sign, they won't even look. They put their heads the other way, or they look on the ground and walk in by you. I was at a protest march in O'Connell Street on Sunday, or last Saturday, and I had, when they seen my banner, I had Quinn and John Burton sneering down at me. Sneering, pointing and sneering at me. We all stood in front of the bus. We blocked that bus and made them take down their Labour flags off it. So it's like...
It's like Pat Rabbit used to getting fatter in a recession, isn't it?
He seems to be all right. But it's like, it reminded me, to be honest, that thing on last Saturday, it was like being in France. The people are starving, there's no bread, so feed them a bit of cake. Why don't they eat a big cake? That's the mentality these people have. They're on the gravy train, and it's family gravy train because one comes in after the other.
I mean, I do support you, Tony, and I do support the cause, and I do support what you're trying to do for everybody else. But the problem I have is that I'm concerned about you. You know what I mean? I am concerned about him. I mean, Terry, do you believe that, he would achieve his result?
Well, we know the answer to that. I think what Tony did, he made a point, I think he should give up now and you know what I mean? Because he's wasting his time, really, Well,
not only his time, his life.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he made a point. I think, just give it up because you're wasting your time.
All right, well, hang on for a second. A lot of people want to talk to you, Tony. The number is 1850 410 494. And I think even if people, Tony, say that you, as Christy or Terry just said, you're wasting time, it doesn't mean he doesn't support you. He does support you. But, I mean, I think people are obviously fearful for your own life. Sorry, Christy, you're in Dublin. You're live on Classic Hits 4FM. Good evening to you.
How you doing, Niall? Yeah, although you'd have to counsel Tony to not injure himself personally, I think think this could be an indication that tax consensus is breaking down in the country. Now, Tony made a good point about the top earners in RTE. They're earning 3/5 of the entire subsidy to the National Bus Company. And if the National Bus Company, we saw recently it was going to go on strike, do you think if those 4 people didn't show up in RTE that the entire economy would crash? That's one of the contrasts. And also these tapes, about Anglo. Mr. Noonan keeps saying, all the paper was shredded, there's no new evidence. The new evidence is the transcripts of those tapes.
Well, they're in possession of those tapes since 2009.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If Mr. Noonan called in a fellow called Con Horan, who is the assistant regulator to Mr. Neary, and was in daily contact with Mr. Bowe, Mr. Fitzpatrick, and all the merry men, and just handed them a transcript of those tapes, and asked them, listen, what's your thoughts on that? We'd have the truth in 2 hours.
But Christy, everybody is sitting at home and we're all singing from the same hymn sheet, and everybody is appalled by what they heard on the tapes. Now, leaving aside, obviously, the jovial nature of the tapes, because that was people in work making stupid comments. But obviously, in relation to what they were actually up to and doing, everybody is well aware what they were doing. Whether it be illegal or not is up to an investigation. But certainly it was immoral, and there's no doubt about that. But we all agree with that. But the point is, we've a man here, Tony, on the other line, who is now in his 16th day of starving himself to death, basically to prove a point that we need to change things. And what I'm saying is, Christy, I know you support him, and you're supporting what he's doing, but you believe he should continue to do it?
Sorry, believe what?
Do you think he should continue to do it?
Well, so long as he takes medical advice, See, you have to remember...
All the medical advice in the world is not going to matter in another 16 days.
Well, he's not going to do that. Well, hopefully he's not going to do that. Listen, you have to remember, a thing called the Clearing Committee in the IFSC, a secret committee, passed 21 amendments to the Finance Act, secret, to bring down the taxes of corporate wealth to 2%. And at the same time, they put up VAT to 23%. And small businessmen like him, and the 78% of people earning less than 67,000, they put all this crap onto their heads. So that you have to remember, people are beginning to think that, is tax consensus breaking down in the country? Because, when you look at those tapes, and you remember, Con Horan, that regulator, he was sent out of the country, and he was promoted to the European Banking Authority. And believe it or not, his title on that banking authority is the National Expert for Banking in Ireland.
That says it all, really, doesn't it, Christy? But look, I want to get back to Tony because I think it's important. Tony, just in relation to what Christy says, Christy says obviously you're not going to go that far. Do you genuinely believe you'll stick the distance?
I don't have to go this far if the people will actually get up and protest. There's no point in sitting on the end of the phone. There's no point in sitting on the end of a typewriter and typing into Facebook or this thing. Get out and protest. Simple as that. There's no point in sitting back talking about it. Get out and do something about it. We have a chance now with all the stuff that's out at the moment to take them down, and that's what needs.
But that's not going to happen in 16 days, and that's all you have, Tony.
It can happen in one day. If the people of Ireland copped onto themselves and said, 1 million people, get up there and march in Dublin, march on the Dáil, force them out.
So you're telling me if everybody got out tomorrow and there was a big protest, you'd be happy about that and you'd come off your hunger strike?
Exactly.
And that's why you're doing it?
That's why I want to get the people, get them angry, get them take these people. There's people committing suicide all around Ireland.
But that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, but
essentially,
I'm doing it in a public way to let people know. Let people know what's going on. Don't hide it away. That's what we've done with the abuse with the priests. That's why they got away with it for 100 years, because it was all hidden in shame. There's no shame when you're being abused. You stand up for yourself.
And what does your wife think of what you're doing, Tony?
Well, obviously, my wife, she agrees in my principles, but not in the way I'm doing it. But I felt I had no other choice. I went all around this country talking to the best advisors. I had great contacts, so I got the best advice from all over the place. And I can step out under my mortgage. If anyone's a PAYE worker, they cannot do that. And I think that's morally unjust. And I've suffered so much in this that it's brought a new thing into my life. And I've new morals now, and my new moral is I'm not going to stand by and let people be abused on my watch if I can help it. And that's what's going to happen. The PAYE sector is going to pay for all the top boys all the time, and that's the way it's going to go.
Okay, well, hold on for a second. Tony Rochford, I'm speaking to, is a man who's on a 16th day of his hunger strike because he objects, obviously, to the property tax and the fact that the government have denied him a right to earn a living. I want to go to Desi. If you want to give us a call, you can. The number is 1850 410 494. If you want to give us a call and give Tony your support or tell him what you think of what he's actually doing. Des, you're in Cork. You're live on Classic Hits 4FM. Good evening to you.
How are you doing? Nice. Good evening.
How are you doing? What do you want to say, Des?
First of all, fair play to Tony, what he's doing, but the reality of a hunger strike, if anybody from Northern Ireland there will probably realise it.
Yep.
See, when it comes to it, and he does go the distance, and he would go into unconsciousness or something like this, the government aren't worried about him because they are going to stick a form under his wife's nose and say, if you don't sign this, you're killing him. And she'll have to sign that, and he'll be force-fed. And that is why there'll never be another hunger strike in this country, because they'll blame the families for the people dying. And you have to admire Tony's, the spirit of his conviction for what he's doing. There's a lot of people out there want to go to the street, but whether it's...
Why don't they? As Tony said, why don't they?
That's until we have 20, 30,000 people protesting in this country about this austerity. And
what I don't understand is, and I'm sure Tony, it probably pisses him off too, there's 430,000 people unemployed. Where are they? Why aren't they out protesting?
What I have noticed down here, right, and I grew up in the Troubles Northern Ireland, I have noticed down here that, and a number of people have agreed with me, that the Irish people have lost their spirit to fight.
Well, Tony hasn't, obviously.
Since the day they took the teachers off the wee special needs children, that was the worst thing that they could do. And they got away with it. Therefore, they could do whatever they wanted, and nobody should boot. We should have brought this country to a standstill for them children, and they didn't.
Tony, do you believe the Irish people have lost their spirit?
Well,
they have.
Hang on.
They have completely, because they're being dictated to all the unions, all them boys that are running these unions, all these trade unions, they're on 100 grand plus. They want the gravy train to stay the way it is. They don't want any change. And they're advising all their people to go in and sign Croke Park agreements, go in and sign the new agreement. People have to start thinking for themselves in Ireland. Think for yourselves. If you accept it, you'll keep getting it. Unless you back into it. I've got backed into a corner, and now I'm fighting. And the way I'm fighting, it's a peaceful way. That's the way I go. But the people of Ireland need to get up and stand up, get out on the streets and protest. A little bit of rain, what about it? You're well used to it. Get out and protest.
How do you get them out?
If Coronation Street was knocked off in the morning by the government, to be 300,000 people in front of the Dáil tomorrow. But they won't get out.
How do we actually get the people on the streets?
It's hard to know. I know
it's a $60 million question.
It is a $60 million
question.
What has to
happen?
To be honest, the only thing that they will do, they will get the Irish, maybe when they start shooting the Irish people, maybe the Irish people will cop on then. But it'll be too late then.
Yeah, but Tony, you heard what Desi said. You know, at a point in maybe 15 or 20 days, maybe, when you basically fall into unconsciousness because you haven't eaten in so long, they will waive, they will get permission from your wife to force feed you.
Well, I've spoken to my solicitor, and he's instructed me that they can't. You are entitled to commit suicide in Ireland.
It's not.
I'm doing it on protest. But I'm not.
Well, I know you're right. It's not illegal to commit suicide in Ireland. But if you go into unconsciousness and go into a coma, your wife will be asked, "Should we force feed Tony?"
Well, no,
I'm no longer in charge of your faculties.
Yeah, but when I am in charge of my faculties, I can leave instructions the way I decide it's going to finish. It's not up to my wife. It's up to me.
But then, Tony, let's say the worst comes to the worst.
Yes.
And you do die.
Yes.
Is it
the nail in the coffin for the government, or is it going to be yesterday's news in 2 months' time?
Well, I say, it's hard to know. To be honest, I cannot really answer that question. And the reason I can't answer that question is I will die not because of the government, because they're not going to change nothing. I know that. I am going to die because the Irish people stood back and let the government ignore me dying on the steps of the dial. In front of the dial, the front gate, they walk in, they won't even look at you. They look to the side, they look down on the ground, and that's what content the government have, not just the government, all parties in there have for the Irish people. It's a gravy train, simple as that.
Can I say one more thing there before we go?
Yeah, go ahead.
I said to my son tonight, this party whip, if you vote against the government, you're out in your ear. So how is that a democracy? That is a dictatorship. And it's allowed in this country that if you don't vote along with me, you're out in your ear. How can that be a democracy? Or when we voted wrong in a referendum, we're told to go back and vote again. What sort of democracy is in this country?
All right, okay, hold on a second. Somebody says here, I'm just looking here, you could probably survive 50 to 60 days on water alone. Well, he's drinking coffee, so there's probably some nutrients in the coffee. But this would depend on the body mass, and I don't think Tony has a huge body mass, by the way. I'm talking to Tony Rochford, who's on a hunger strike for the last 16 days. I want to go to Stephen, you're in Mayo. You want to talk to Tony. You're live on Classic Hits 4FM. Good evening to you, Stephen.
Yeah, how are you doing? I met Tony there for the first time just on Monday. I travelled up from Castlebar up to Dublin to meet him and, kind of stand with him.
Right, okay.
And, I mean, it's unbelievable that he has to do what he's doing because he represents a huge amount of people in the country who are feeling under serious financial pressure, and a lot of which have killed themselves by a lot quicker means, like in the last few years. But I mean, there's a few things with it, like the property tax for a start. You know, Kenny, everyone knows that he said it was unlawful and immoral years back. But yet, when he needs money, when money is needed, it becomes not unlawful or immoral. But there's a couple of things coming up actually on this. On Thursday in the District Court in Westport in Mayo, Tony Keegan is up in court for his hearing. He's been the first man in Ireland to be summoned to do with the household charge. Was
there not one in Galway there a while ago as well? Or in Mayo, was it?
No. Yeah, Mayo, Westport, Mayo District Court.
I thought there was one already there about 4 or 5 months ago, was there not? No?
No, he's the first one in the country.
Okay, all right, okay.
His summons is for failure to make a declaration to pay. Now, obviously, to anyone who knows anything, it's unconstitutional. It's against your human rights to force someone, any man or woman, against their will to make a declaration. So that's happening. The judge probably won't make a ruling as possibly because there's a group called Attack the Tax. And that's something people should look into doing as well. I'm not into supporting, groups who are. I know they're looking for people to pay to join them and everything else, and you know what I mean. If you don't want to talk about that, that's fine. But I just want to say one or two other quick things, okay? The other day, someone brought up the Anglo Tapes. The last couple of callers.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't really know much about that. I was up meeting Tony the last day on Monday. And by coincidence, I met two other lads that called up to see him. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you saw the video online, but these two lads went down to the Department of Finance and issued freedom of information requests for all the details to do with the Anglo Tapes and all.
This is when they met Brendan Howlin.
Exactly, Brendan Howlin, yeah.
Yeah, and he pushed the camera away.
He did. Well, there's another video up there as well, which actually shows, which I took, which I was in with the lads, and they handed in the requests. But what I'd like to know is, people are not happy about this. Where's the media been? Where's RTE been on this? They handed in any freedom of information requests, or for yourselves and in 4FM, have you? Or the media have a lot to play in with the problems we are in this country at the moment. And you say you don't want to talk about this Attack the Tax, but you didn't even ask me what that's all about.
I know what Attack the Tax. Hold on, I've spoke about Attack the Tax before.
Okay, fair enough. But you have to agree now, the media as a whole, like RTE,
will they ever show up for Tony? Will Tony have to die on the street?
No, I do think it's wrong, and I said that to Tony, that if RTE were there, I don't know why they didn't cover it.
Yeah.
It's
very strange. The other problem, I don't know why Tony isn't getting support at the moment from people. I can't understand that. Well, I know
there is a level, okay, and I'm looking at some of the text coming in here, and as much as people do support him, okay, I mean, everybody supports the notion and the principle and what he's doing, right? But a lot of people are saying, well, you've got a wife, you're leaving behind your wife. At the end of the day, the government are not going to be blackmailed by anybody. No more than Bobby Sands could blackmail the British government. They're not going to be blackmailed by somebody who's saying, I'm going to take my own life. Because they can't be seen to be doing that. No government has ever bowed down to a hunger striker. Ever. As far as I can remember in history.
Well, it depends. If enough public pressure was put on for a start, well, then it would be very hard to not listen to them. Why people don't engage, I don't know. I mean, I don't know why the level of apathy is in this country. I was listening, I don't normally listen to Radio RC, but I was in the car this morning, and some woman called in, and she witnessed some man punching some woman on the street in Dublin, and everybody walked by and nobody did anything. And it's the same with different protests that are going on around the country at the moment.
Well, I agree. Life has changed, yeah. I do agree.
Yeah, exactly. And one big one, by the way, when I'm on air, if anyone knows anything about the fluoride issue.
I'm not going to talk about that now, all right?
The company that are selling drugs to our Irish government.
All right, okay. This is not a forum for you just to get all your bits and pieces out, to be straight with you. Yeah, Stephen, this is not a forum for you to talk about fluoride and everything else, all right? We're talking about what Tony is doing. Tony is not protesting because of fluoride in the water, okay? No. Tony is out there because he's protesting against the property tax. So let's stick to the issue.
Tony has more important things, but people have to realise what is at play here and what different things are going on.
Yeah. Okay, but we're not talking about fluoride in the water. We're not talking about everything else. We're talking about what's happening to Tony at the moment. And what's happening to Tony is because of the property tax.
Ask Tony what about my points I brought up there.
Yeah, well, Tony, I mean, you're welcome to interject there or talk about it if you want.
Well, to be honest, I've several different points I'd love to take up with the government at the moment. But the one that can be won is the constitutional matter. You cannot tell someone they cannot provide for themselves or their wife. As far as I'm concerned, that is completely unconstitutional.
Bernie,
the government is there to protect the people. They're not protecting me when they tell me, Tony Rochford, you cannot work. That's the simple matter of fact. That's what I've been saying.
But hold on, nobody is stopping you working, Tony.
Of course, stop me.
No, you're saying. Hold on, no. You're saying they're stopping you working unless you pay the property tax. You can't work because you can't get a tax clearance certificate. Yeah.
But hold on a minute. If I can't,
if you paid it,
mortgage. If I can't pay my,
but you can. You did pay your full mortgage up to last month.
Yes, but I will have to reduce it now to pay the household charge.
Mm-hmm.
And then next year, when it can go up on both sides, because it's linked in on both sides.
But you can't say that. You can't say that the government are stopping you from working. They're not.
Of course they are.
Right, okay. Bernie, you're in Dublin, you're live on Classic Hits 4FM. Sorry, Bernie, go ahead.
Hi, Niall, how are you? I like Stephen, I met Tony yesterday at the forecourt.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it on Facebook and I went in to show him some support because, like himself, I am one of the people in this country, one of the probably 200,000, 300,000 people that still haven't registered and won't register for the property tax. I mean, the government is annihilating the ordinary person in this country, and it's just so wrong. Somebody mentioned there the rate of suicide, and I don't agree that Tony is going to die by suicide.
What is it? Yeah, what is it then, Bernie?
No, he is taking a principle.
He's taking his own life. Yeah, but he's taking. Hold on a second, Barry. Don't sugarcoat it. He's taking his life.
I'm not sugarcoating it. I mean, what shouldn't be sugarcoated is the fact that the government, and we are allowing them. We're all complicit in this.
No, we're not. Hold on a second. I'm not. No. Hold on a second, Bernie. Don't be trying to. Yeah, but don't throw a guilt trip on people.
No, I'm not. What I'm saying to you is that any of us that are standing by and sitting at home and saying that the property charge and the way that the ordinary 5/8 have been treated in this country for the last number of years, and what our children and our grandchildren are going to be facing for the next number of years, if we can't say that we are allowing that to happen, okay?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think anybody's happy about it, Bernie.
No, that's fine. But, like, I'm not saying that we're happy, but we've got to get up and do something about it.
No, but I hear this every single night. We got to get up and do something. Okay, Tony's doing something, but Tony has gone from doing something to the extreme, which is to allow himself to die, which is suicide, Bernie.
Yeah, well,
you can call it what you want.
Well, look, isn't it amazing in this country? I just say this, that Tony is there and he is taking the stand that he is. While I would hope, and I've spoken to Tony about this, that Tony would take fruits and to try and find another avenue. But I do 100% would agree with him trying to get the Irish population.
So you agree with Tony going on hunger strike and dying possibly at the end of it?
No, I don't. Don't put words in my mouth.
You're saying you agree with what he's doing.
I agree with his frustration.
I agree with his frustration. I agree with the principle of what he's doing, but I don't agree with what he's doing.
No, listen, I didn't say that. What I'm saying is, now, you've said it yourself. You agree with what he's doing and what he...
In principle.
Principle stand, yes.
For protests.
Now, that's what I'm trying to say. And sorry if I'm not as articulate as yourself.
No, I'm not suggesting that, Bernie.
No, well, I'm not saying... it's a very hard thing to turn around to say to somebody, like, I mean, I would rather see him...
If I was Tony's friend, Bernie, I'd tell him to stop.
I would too. I asked him to stop yesterday.
Yeah.
And there are people that are asking Tony. But, I mean, I can understand his total frustration. There's many people. I'm involved in a group in Fingers called the Finger Suicide Network. And we try and, encourage people and let them know that suicide is a permanent answer to a transient problem. Do you know what I mean?
It's a long-term answer to a short-term problem, yes.
Yes, it's the same thing.
But would you not just say that to Tony as well?
I have said that.
Okay. Because that's what I'm saying to Tony. Sorry, well, hang on, Bernie, for a second. Tony, hang on, Bernie, just for a second. Tony, you heard what Bernie said, and look, as much as she agrees with the principle and the right to protest, and fair play to you, and you're a brave man, and et cetera, and we all understand that, and everybody supports you and what you're doing to some extent. But at the end of the day, what you're doing essentially is suicide, and it's a long-term answer to a short-term problem. Yeah, well, okay, they're my words. That's fine. But Tony, what you're doing is you're taking your own life.
I think that, if I lose my life in Ireland through hunger strike, the shame is on the people of Ireland.
No, don't throw the guilt trip. Hold on a second. Don't throw a guilt trip on the people of Ireland.
Why not?
No, don't be blaming the people of Ireland for your death. That's not fair, Tony.
They're standing by and letting the government abuse the people in Ireland. They're not standing up for the people.
Everybody has their own personal difficulties on a different level. Everybody has their own difficulties getting through this recession. We all understand how difficult it is for everybody.
But if we do not stand up together...
Tony, I object to the property tax. I object to the household charge. I object to the way that I'm being treated in this country. The harder I work, the more I'm screwed. I object to all that. But Tony, I've got a wife and kids, and I am not going to put my life on the line for that. At the end of the day, I'll get through it. I'll work it out. I'll get through it. I'll stand up and I'll help people protest. And I'll give people airtime to protest as well, more than some other radio stations will do. But I'm certainly not going to die because of it.
Niall.
Yes, sorry, Bernie.
Niall, nobody would suggest that you wouldn't. And I mean, I will say the only stations that ever seem to support, or not necessarily support, but give airtime to different problems like that and give the wider public a vehicle to try and articulate how they're feeling are the stations like yourself. Our national station is a bloody disgrace. You swear there was nothing happening in this country. Like, I haven't seen anything about Tony in our national media. And I don't think I've seen it in the news feeds either. You know the way...
No, the only thing I've seen it on, unfortunately, is the Journal, which is the only one that actually...
the Journal is great, and Rabble and
all right.
Things like that. But I would implore people in this country to listen to the tapes and to the, how they're being screwed over left, right and centre.
Oh, look, Bernie, I know people listened to those tapes all last week and are sick by them. Listen, Tony, I got to wrap it up. All I'll say, Tony, is, and I'll plead with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe this problem is going to be fixed overnight, and you know that as well as I do. And this problem I don't believe the Irish people are going to get out there, and I say this with the greatest respect to you, Tony, they're not going to get out there with you in the next 16 days. And I don't want to see you lose your life because of that. You've a wife, you've a house, you've a possibility of work. Tony, just take it.
No, that's the easy route.
It's not the easy route, it's the sensible route, Tony.
Excuse me, I had to sit down in front of my wife and explain to my wife my reasons for doing this. And I had to say to my wife, this thing is bigger than me and my wife. This country needs to wake up.
Tony, you're right. You're right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. It does need to wake up. And the people need to wake up to what's happening. But in saying that, Tony, you losing your life, and sadly, what's going to happen is you will die. There's no doubt about it. If you continue not to eat food and take food, you will die. That's just nature. And what will happen is your story will become yesterday's news 2 weeks later. You know that, Tony.
But to be honest,
and I would hate that to happen.
Yeah, but to be honest, I do not want to be alive in a country where people are going to stand by, like they did with the sex abuse, stand by and watch people suffering all the time. If that's the type of country this has turned out to be, I do not want to be part of it. That's end of story.
All right, well, listen, Tony, I do wish you the best of luck. And I do hope that people get out there and support you. Where can they go again? Remind them where they can go tomorrow.
In front of the Dáil, tomorrow evening, the crowds will be building up from about 4 o'clock. It's starting at 6. The Dáil runs late tomorrow night. It's open till 9 o'clock. That's why it's been done.
All right, listen.
So it's not as if they're gone. They're there in the Dáil tomorrow, and they have to come out by you. So that's where you get up and stand up and make your voice heard for once.
All right, listen, Tony, keep in touch with us, okay? Let us know how you're getting on, all right?
Okay, thanks very much.
All right, well, there you go, Tony Rochford. And listen, yeah, look, get out there and support him. And I hope he starts to take food soon. I hope it sorts itself out. All right, listen, we've got to take a quick break. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. As usual, we for the next hour, we're going to do our Get It Off Your Chest from 12 o'clock to 12:30. And don't forget, Radio Roulette is coming up at 12:30. So it's your chance to get it off your chest, basically. All you got to do is text your answer to 53544. The one thing I really want to get off my chest is blank. You fill in the blank. We're going to give away a Classic Hits 4FM mug between now and 1 o'clock. So just text in 53544.